What did you want to be when you grew up? So we've got a year 10 student at home at the moment in our family, and he's getting ready to do work experience. And it's a tough moment because all of a sudden you've got an opportunity to go and try something that maybe you want to have a go at. And so it's kind of brought up a conversation in our family about what it is that maybe he wants to do moving forward. And he's not sure. Why? Because he's 15. That's why. I'm 40 and I still haven't got a clue what I want to do. But the conversation happens. And I remember that at 15, if you'd have asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would have told you that I wanted to be an optometrist. Now, the problem with this was I wasn't smart enough to be an optometrist, and if I'm really honest with you, after doing work experience as an optometrist, I worked out that really the main reason I wanted to be an optometrist was that I thought that pressing that little button when you look into that black little hole and it like puffs you really hard with air in the eye, that I thought that was kind of what an optometrist did, and I thought that sounded like fun, like just like shooting high pressure air into people's eyes. And then unfortunately I worked out that was actually a pretty small part of the job. It wasn't actually what you did. And so I realized that it involved lots of other things, and it involved sitting in a dark room with no windows for hours on end. And maybe you're an optometrist and maybe you love it. No judgments. But for me, I realized that maybe that wasn't what I wanted to do. But you know what? I tried it. I gave it a go. I also then went on and did a second lot of work experience and ended up doing work experience with a friend of mine's dad, and he was a CEO. And I thought, oh, this could be cool. This could be fun. And I spent a whole week flying around the country, going to meetings and doing all sorts of things. All my friends thought it was the coolest thing and thought I had the best work experience because I got to like fly places and go fun adventures and all that kind of stuff. And maybe now when I reflect back on it, maybe that week led me slowly towards the reality of when I myself became a CEO. So the funny thing is that when I was CEO, it wasn't as much fun as when I'd been on work experience as a CEO, because see, when I was on work experience as a CEO, I didn't carry any of the responsibilities or the work or the stress or the answerability to a board and staff and realities of budget consequences. I was there for free food in the Qantas Club, and I sort of seeing the external bits of the job. But see, the reality is I think we go through life trying to answer that question. And I think often what we've done is we've actually asked ourselves that question and been asked that question at a younger and younger age. So my kids who are, I've got a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old, and they're under so much pressure to have an answer to that question. That at 15, you're supposed to know exactly what you want to be when you grow up. And not only do you have to know, you have to then set a path and start working towards making that a reality. Now, again, that may be true for some kids. Some kids that you know probably know that they want to be a doctor or they want to be a lawyer or whatever. But for many kids, and me in particular, and I'm sure many of you just don't know. So the reality is you don't know what you don't know. And as I've grown up, I've realized there are a million jobs out there that I never even knew existed when I was 15. So how can you choose to orient your whole life towards the direction of a career that you don't even know exists? Because to be honest, at 15, you think the world's full of doctors and builders and plumbers and lawyers and nurses, and that's about it. You might know there's a job in computers or something, but ultimately you don't know all of the things that are out there. We also live in such an ever-changing world that the things that are out there now maybe weren't even out there 5 years ago. So there was a time where we had lots of fax machine repairmen because that was a job. But the reality is we also now have jobs that didn't exist even just a handful of years ago. So how do we navigate this problem? How do we navigate the question? How do we help young people who, let's say, are 15, 17, leaving school? My eldest is about to leave school. How do we help them wrestle with a question that, if we are honest, many of us have wrestled with for a very long time? See, I mentioned earlier in another podcast that I've done lots of different jobs, and I have. I worked at a stainless steel nuts and bolts shop. That wasn't my dream job. If you'd have asked me at 15, did I want to be a nuts and bolts guy? I'd have said, no, not particularly. But to be honest, at 15, I didn't even know that there was a guy who sold nuts and bolts. But the reality is that I've tried stuff. We've all tried stuff. And for me, the journey through our life, as we continue to try and work out how we put our life together, is fascinating. How are you piecing your life together? How are you taking one step that leads to another step? How are you trying a job or a career and working out whether this is something that fills you up, or somewhere in a space that you can value add? What have you tried? What do you never want to do again? What do you want to do again? How have the people around you and the way they have lived and worked and put their lives together, how have they shaped you? Have you looked at people in your own family and said, I never want that in my life? Or have you said, I want that? How have you come to a place where you've made that decision? That's what I'm fascinated about. Right now, I've got a list of over 50 people that I'm working on lining up interviews with to have this discussion. And as I look at this list, I realize there are so many different ways to put your life together. There are so many different paths and careers and quests that people can go on to try and find meaning and value and work and fulfill their responsibilities. As I started to talk to some of those people, some of them have said to me, oh, but my story isn't very interesting. No one's going to want to listen to what I have to say or to my journey. And then as I talk to them, they tell me these incredible stories, these incredible, real, authentic, valuable stories of how they are navigating life, how they have overcome things, or they have risen to challenges, or they have tried new things, or they've had just moments of 3 seconds of courage that have changed the way their whole life goes. How they have committed to retrain and try whole new jobs, even when other people maybe thought it was too late. Or they've built businesses out of things that they have no formal training in, but they have a passion for, and they've just learnt and they've risked and they've tried. Through to other people who've been in jobs for decades, and they love the consistency and the predictability of their life. That they have a place where they can value add over decades and over years into people and into businesses and to organizations that means something to them. See, we're all wired differently. We've all got a different space or a different place where we make a difference. So the podcast is the arc of this podcast, my hope and my prayer for this podcast is that we may discover stories that encourage or challenge us. Me included. I am fascinated to hear the stories of other people and how they continue to make choices to put their lives together. I want to hear people's successes. I want to hear their failures. I want to hear their doubts. I want to hear their joys. I want to hear when they've made decisions that everybody around them have said sounded stupid. I want to know when they've made decisions where everyone around them has applauded. But I'm fascinated, and I hope you are, to go on a journey to ask some of these questions. I've put together a bit of a questionnaire that I've been sending out to these some of the people that I want to talk to, and I was thinking that maybe they would just hit some dot points and it would just get them thinking. But I now have had a number of them sent back to me, and there seems to be a bit of a pattern. And the pattern is that people are filling these questionnaires in with great time and detail and commitment, and they're taking this time to reflect on some of the questions. And it's just been a privilege for me that people want to share and they want to tell their story and they want to start unpacking. And so I want to say to you today that I'm really looking forward to the next coming weeks and months as I start to interview people and sit down just over a cup of coffee and unpack what life looks like for them and how they've put their lives together. I'm convinced that this conversation is a conversation that people want to have. I've had overwhelming response from some people who have started to listen to the podcast saying, this is the conversation that I want to have. This is the question and the conversation I'm having with myself. And they're really excited for what it might turn into and what they might learn. And so I want to continue, and I want this to be a casual, fun-filled, real, authentic dive into life together. And I just really hope you are encouraged or challenged or whatever it is. But ultimately, I'm super looking forward to sitting down with a few people in the coming weeks and getting those things out to you. Now, those podcasts will be more long form. They're not just going to be these sort of 6 or 10 minute kind of little thought bubbles of mine. They're going to be a little bit longer, and they're going to be a bit in depth, and hopefully you can stay with us through that conversation. And whether you're listening to it in your car or on the train or at home or while you're cooking, I don't know, however you digest podcasts. I pray that as you, engage into these conversations, that you may step into those conversations with us. And there may be something that sparks in you that encourages you or challenges you in some way. So maybe in the meantime, before this first interview sort of comes out, I guess my question for you today is, what did you want to be when you grew up? Are you being the thing that you wanted to be when you grew up? Did you try the thing and it wasn't exactly what you thought? Have you never tried it, and has the dream never left you? What would it look like to maybe become what you wanted to be when you grew up? Or has the world changed? And are there now new things and new exciting adventures you maybe could go on in areas where at 15 or 17 you never even knew existed? Are you living that life already? Are you working in a job that you could have never imagined when you were younger? I'd love for you to, over a coffee, chat about that with someone you know, because I'm guaranteeing you right now that people are thinking about how they put their lives together, and maybe we can encourage each other by telling each other our stories. So stick around. You're going to hear some interviews really soon. I'm really looking forward to them. A variety of different people from a variety of different backgrounds doing a variety of different jobs, and with heaps of different life circumstances around them. So I'm looking forward to having those conversations. Thanks for joining me again, and I'll see you soon. See ya.